Hello, I'm Congresswoman Lofgren, and I want to thank you for inviting me to give remarks at today's gala. I also want to thank kind staff and pro bono attorneys nationwide for your tireless efforts to ensure that children in immigration court have legal representation and are not forced to appear alone in court. I wish I could be there in person with you today. It's just wrong that children are compelled to appear alone in immigration court in front of a judge and in opposition to a trained federal attorney. The majority of these children do not speak English and have no experience with the American legal system. Many are victims of abuse and trauma in their home countries. Almost 50% of unaccompanied children lack representation in immigration court. And almost 90% of children ordered removed by an immigration judge have had no counsel. Rather than protecting children, our broken immigration system fails to provide them legal representation. As a result, many are being ordered removed to the very countries where they fear persecution, abuse, or death. In El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala, we know that criminal gangs are terrorizing civilians and targeting children for gang recruitment, sexual slavery, or torture. That's why we have seen an increase in the number of children traveling to the United States. Many of these children arrive at our borders with terrifying stories of trauma, violence, and devastation. I met many of these children and their families in visits to the southern border, and I heard their stories of violence and terror. These were not the stories of individuals threatening our border security. They were the stories of refugees fleeing for their lives and seeking protection in the United States. In fact, rather than evading apprehension at the border, these Central American women and children seek out the Border Patrol to surrender and ask for asylum. They are refugees and are not a threat to our national security, and they have the right under U.S. and international law to seek protection and request safe haven. Our government should provide international protection to refugees, not use harsh immigration enforcement tactics to deter them from coming to America. Providing legal representation to this population is the first step to ensure that vulnerable immigrants are not deported to countries where they would face death or persecution. We know that children who have a lawyer are 5 times more likely to be granted protection. That's why I was proud to introduce the Fair Day in Court for Kids Act. This bill ensures that all individuals in immigrant detention have access to legal orientation programs. It creates a nonprofit, community-based case management program, and it allows vulnerable populations to file motions to reopen if their counsel was not appropriately appointed. Most importantly, it requires that kids have lawyers in immigration court. I feel that legal representation can make a life or death difference for these immigrants, particularly for asylum seekers and torture survivors. This is even more important for vulnerable immigrant children seeking protection in the U.S. Thank you to kind attorneys and staff and pro bono attorneys who represent children all around the country for your efforts in ensuring that all immigrant children have access to full and fair legal representation.